first off, you have a very interesting actor origin story.
Mm.
So can you talk a little bit about what it was like going from working in criminal justice and law enforcement and then going into acting?
Yeah, they're two totally different worlds, obviously, but I think that my experience working in the criminal justice field certainly informs a lot of my work. Of course, I've played a lot of law enforcement types, not always exactly law enforcement, but law enforcement types or authoritative figures. And I think that having real life experience is really the best teacher for acting as far as I have been able to tell. I know that I've talked to some other people that I've worked with who are leaps and bounds ahead of me in this business, and they also talk about how real life experience just, you know, can't be substituted when it comes to like acting training, right? So I do feel very grateful that I did something before I became an actor. But it's a lot less stressful, I'll say that. My job before quite literally involved life and death. A lot of people will say things about their job being stressful, and then they'll be like, "Well, it's not like it's life or death." It's like, "Well, that actually was my situation." So I would go home and I would sincerely worry that, like a child on my caseload, when I was a investigator for child abuse and neglect, I would really worry that something might happen to them tonight if I made the wrong decision to maybe not place them with a family member right now and instead put services in the home to give their parents, a chance to make corrections. So um, I'm I'm very grateful that that part of the stress of my job is gone. Um, Now I get to just embody telling those really important stories that are really happening out in the world.
Yeah, I can't imagine how much of a relief it is to only have to portray the stories now rather than
Yeah.
live them. So,
Yeah, certainly. It's interesting because, you know, I always describe acting as, my job being that I need to investigate the human experience, right? Like that is my job to investigate the human experience. And I think that the job I did before was investigating the human experience from an external perspective, and now it's investigating the human experience from an internal perspective, and going and getting informed from other people's lives and other people's situations. And it's just interesting because it is really just kind of like flipping the coin and trying to put yourself in that actual situation.
right, yeah. Um, You mentioned a little bit about how this experience has been beneficial for your acting career, but what challenges did that also bring?
The experience of
Yeah,
this particular job,
yeah.
the runarounds. Um,
Or with your career in general.
oh, sorry, can you repeat that question? I think I got confused.
Okay, I don't think I asked it very well. Um, your your past life,
Yes,
living in the law enforcement and criminal justice
right.
life, was that experience like bringing that experience into acting? Were there any challenges that came with that?
I would say one of the challenges, of course, is that television and film are very different from real life sometimes. And, when I have been asked to portray, let's say, a police officer or something like that, and I'm on set and something's happening that isn't maybe the most realistic, having to know when to say something, to say, hey, can we adjust here to make this thing feel more realistic, or sorry, or just knowing when to bite my tongue and just let it be what it is, because we're doing this because this is scripted and it's dramatic for a reason. I would say that that was challenging and an adjustment, of course.
That's totally fair. Totally
Like
fair.
learning to be an actor and staying in your lane, like that's a thing that comes only with experience, because I'm somebody who tries to be helpful all the time, right? And so, like, being in a position where I feel like I could offer some information that could be helpful and thinking that that's a good thing, but then people in the industry being like, what are you doing? Like, it's not your place to say anything. You know what I mean? So just learning that. I haven't had any bad experiences with it, but it's been something that I've had to like clock and understand for myself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm
Um,
used to in my old job speaking up anytime I think something's not right and being heard, because I also worked in the court. I mean, of course, there were times where I was in the court and I would say things and they were like, no, but because that happens.
yeah.
But oftentimes in that other job, it was expected that I would be speaking up and saying things and offering my opinion. And that's not always the case even though we have a very interactive and collaborative medium working in television and film, there is definitely a time and a place.
Gotcha, gotcha. Um, Even though a lot of your characters are in authoritative roles, law enforcement type roles, you're starting to branch out into different types of characters, most currently with the runarounds. So what has it been like for you going from living this career to embodying almost the same type of career to now getting to branch out and explore things?
I think at the beginning, of course, I was pretty intentional about when I moved to the Atlanta market when I started my career, and I was totally brand new, didn't know anybody. I started to learn little things along the way, of course. And one of the things I learned is that it's oftentimes easiest to play characters that are closest to who you are in order to, like, maybe get your foot in the door or just to make a good impression. And so showing up and doing something that's inherently more yourself is going to maybe make a better impression because you feel more real in that, right? So when I started kind of picking up these little puzzle pieces, and also my investigation work has served me so well in navigating the business side of this. So that's another thing that I will say because um, as I picked up those little clues and those little puzzle pieces, I started, acting on them and making plans to be like, well, I could use this to go here, whatever it is. So what I did was I realized I should tell the casting directors in the Atlanta market that I have this experience. And I did. And I made sure that my representation also expressed that anytime they were submitting me for those types of roles. My team still does that when they're submitting me for those types of roles. They'll say, she has over 7 years experience working in the criminal justice field, the law enforcement field, the court system, blah, blah, blah. And I used that to book some of my first roles, several of my first co-star roles. And then that got me on set and that got me set experience and I started building relationships. And then about a year and a half after I had booked my first like union job, that was in like April 2018. And I believe it was August or September 2019 when I booked a recurring guest star role on The Sinner, which was up in New York, and I was playing a police officer and now all of a sudden my one scene or one episode police officers turned into 7 out of 8 episodes on a
Mm.
show, right? And and that was great because it doing that and allowing myself to be typecast, if you will, really allowed me to just be working and learning more and learning on set and learning from people like Bill Pullman, people like Laura Linney, like being able to watch and observe and learn from them and just learning set etiquette and how people move and relationships with producers and directors and everybody, right? The writers, the crew. And I think that that was invaluable, and I think that had I fought against that, I probably wouldn't be working as much as I'm working today because I wouldn't have had that kind of like that explosion out of the gate, if you will, of like boom, boom, boom. I did all of these law enforcement roles, right? And then, you know, as time went on, and I started thinking, well, gosh, I don't want to only play these roles, and you start having that conversation with yourself. I had read in other places, if you just keep showing up and doing the work and you're great at it, they will know you can do other things. You know what I mean? Like just knowing inherently that people will understand she's not going to only be good at doing this, you know? And so I really leaned into that and I trusted that. And then eventually I started auditioning for other things and um, then I started playing the criminals, So then I started playing the other side of those scenarios. Um, and I hope to obviously continue exploring that and doing a bunch of other roles that I haven't done yet.
What would be like your dream role?
There's several of them, if I'm being really honest with you, but um, I've always wanted to play a cowgirl or like a rancher because I grew up riding horses and I just love horses. So I think that that would be really cool. I could play it. I could play a rancher in modern times, or I could play, a cowgirl at a saloon back in the early 1900s. It doesn't matter to me. Sorry, he's being very active and wants to be part of this interview. This is Link. Um, and then truthfully, because I play a lot of really like tough or mean people or, incredibly um, flawed and struggling people, I would really love nothing more than to just have a husband and a child in a show or a movie, and be a loving mom and wife, who of course will still have struggles, because otherwise she's not a three-dimensional human, but
Right.
um, I really want to play a character that can be the heartbeat of something, um, that can have more of like the love and the heartbeat of the scenes. I think that that would be really nice, because I also very much have that part in me too.
Mhm.
Um, and let me think, what else? I've always thought it would be really cool to do something like, so many of these A-list women have done this, but the mother who is out avenging her family and kicking everyone's ass. I feel like that could be really fun. I've always thought an astronaut would be really fun for some reason. Just things like that. I'm sure that there's dozens of others that just aren't coming to my head right now, but yeah. I mean, honestly, I want to play anything and everything that I can. The more variety, the better. Something where I can completely transform my look and my appearance would be really cool. Um, I think about Jacob Elordi I just read an interview that he did where he talks about how becoming the monster in this new Frankenstein movie that we're going to see really allowed him to be a lot more free in his acting. And I find that really interesting. And I think that that would be really cool to play a character where like you just don't see me, to know what that would feel like to um, be more free in your acting because you're not observing yourself as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope you get to explore as many characters and character types as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, you've also been very open about being neurodivergent, which I absolutely love. We don't get that a whole lot. Um, how has being able to understand yourself a little bit more fully helped kind of inform how you understand your characters?
Mm, it's a good question, Beth. Um, I think that understanding myself more fully allows me to approach my characters with less judgment.
Mm.
Um, because somebody like Wendy Wysong in the Runarounds, on the surface of things, you could see her and realize, like, okay, this is a very struggling, flawed woman who um, is suffering from some mental health issues. Potentially some physical health issues that are referenced in the show because she does have a prescription medication, a prescription pain medication, and she talks about her health issues very briefly. And also somebody who is struggling with substance abuse. Somebody like that, um, a lot of people would be able to just, and she's low income, right? A lot of people would look at that character and really just pass a lot of negative judgment. And I think that being someone who is certainly familiar with trauma and, you know, I, I'm, I, I still don't know enough about neurodivergency to know how much of it is trauma informed and how much of it is genetic, right? Because they're still kind of uncovering all of that. And I am somebody who's familiar with trauma and mental health, struggles, just like most people, right? And being neurodivergent, that is a mental health issue, right? And something else that we have to navigate. So I think that giving my characters more grace and digging into finding like why they are how they are, trying not to judge them, and actually trying to find a reason to love them and find their strengths has been important. And also just like not pertaining to my character itself, but navigating the business, I also found early on when I would sit in the hair and makeup chair, I would struggle to not ask them to fix things on my face or with my hair because I'm OCD and things would feel out of place or it wouldn't look right to me or, and it would just be a thing that was like bothering my brain, right? And I noticed early on that some of my hair and makeup artists, it felt to me like when I would ask for those things, I was being difficult. I got the sense that like maybe I was coming off as difficult. And so now that I know I'm officially diagnosed, when I got diagnosed a year ago, it was only a year ago, everything about my personality, not everything, but a lot of things about my personality and the way that I move through the world made so much sense, right? I've always been called type A or a perfectionist because I've always been like a 4-point student and graduated from the Honors College at Michigan State and like was always very high achieving and the things that I said I was going to do, I was actually going to figure out a way to do it. Like when I told everybody I was going to become an actor, of course there were people who were like, "Oh, that's going to be hard," but there weren't people in my life who said, "I don't think you're going to do that." It was actually the opposite. People who said, "If anybody's going to become an actor without knowing anything about it, it will be you," because I think they know how I move. But being able to now communicate that to people that I'm working with I find has made my life so much easier. So as soon as I sit down in any hair and makeup chair, and this is even when I go and get headshots or I'm doing a photo shoot, I always walk in obviously very happy to be there and just say, "Hey, just want to give you a heads up. I am OCD. It's not just a cute thing I say. It's really how my brain works. So, you know, I do need to put my own mascara on. And I may say some things and want some tweaks, and it has nothing to do with your ability. It has everything to do with my brain. And without fail, every single one of them, even the costume department, because there's certain fabrics that I can't wear because of my sensory issues. Um, they're all just so appreciative. They say, "Thank you so much for actually telling us that. That's so helpful to know about you so that we can work together." And I have found that it's empowered me to be honest, because it makes me feel so much more comfortable with the people that I'm working with that they know, you know, what I'm dealing with in a sense.
That's amazing to hear. As
Yeah.
someone else
Thanks.
who's neurodivergent, it's very much feeling like a burden and then
Mm-hmm.
allowing us to communicate things, which is great.
Yes.
Which is
Yeah. 100%. And I'm still not completely convinced that I have all the diagnoses that I should have. Like there are certainly things that I also suspect that I might also have that I just haven't gone and gotten tested for. Um, and working with kids in an elementary school during the strike, I went and substitute taught. That was one of the reasons why I was led to go and get tested because I'm working with all of these little kids who are like getting all these diagnoses and I'm watching their behaviors and I'm thinking, why did you do that to him, buddy? And he's like, well, because I wanted the noise to stop. And I'm like, same. Okay, same. Like I want, but
Yeah.
I know I'm an adult and I know you can't do that thing to make the noise stop. You know what I mean? So being around little kids really helped me realize there's some things that I'm dealing with that I think just went unnoticed. You know, being a kid growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, like a lot of girls just didn't get tested for things. So there's a lot of females, I think, in my generation, which is the millennial generation, that um, we just dealt with it somehow, and we compensated and modified the way that we learned and did things, I think, without knowing that we were ever dealing with some of the things that the boys were dealing with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so with being in an industry where you do have the ability to speak up and accommodate yourself in ways that you need to, you also don't have a lot of control over a lot of like what goes on set and stuff. So how do you navigate the parts of the industry that you don't have the ability to control or speak up, I guess?
Yeah. I've always not been a very patient person, which is hilarious that I decided to pursue an acting career because it takes nothing, if not the most, patience, because you don't have control over the things. I think I try to focus on the controllables though. And sometimes, there's situations where, let's say that I'm in a green room. Oh, there goes my pup. Can we pause? I have to go get him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's going to start barking from where he's sitting. Come here, Link. No, we're not doing that. Let's go. Come here. And one of the things that I can't do is I can't focus when there's extra noise happening. And so actually dealing with his dementia has been a really challenging task for me as a sole caregiver to my elderly pup. It's a lot. It really wears on me, but he's worth it. So let me go back to answering your question. When it comes to like actually being on set and navigating things outside of my control, a perfect example would be sitting in a holding room or a green room with other cast members who are making a lot of noise. Um, because I'm finding in the last couple of years that my sensory issues to noise specifically is the thing that it has become, um, I guess a struggle is the word to say, but it's just been difficult to deal with. To where extra noise just gets me very agitated. So, I've had castmates previously like be in a holding room, and it's pretty much like general etiquette to like have your headphones in. But they've been like listening to videos on speakerphone, for example. And if you're sitting there just trying to like rest your brain in between takes or focus on something, you certainly don't want somebody either playing music super loudly or playing like TikTok videos super loudly. And so I've just had to remove myself sometimes, move to a different area. I actually recently got some headphones that are meant to funnel noise, where you can still fully hear what's going on, but it's just not giving you the same volume of the noise. And it's not a normal earplug. It's like specifically designed so that you can still hear what's going on, but it's canceling out a lot of the extra things that you don't need. I don't even know what the technology is, but I just bought some of those, and those I think will be incredibly helpful for me too. Um, so yeah, I think it's just a situational sort of thing. There's nothing consistently that I can think of that I have to always be advocating for myself about, other than like, the hair and makeup and wardrobe stuff.
That's fair. Um, do you have any? excuse me, any pieces of advice for other neurodivergents that are trying to navigate the field?
Mm. I think if they're at all comfortable sharing, you know, the parts of themselves that might be interfering with the work with the people that they're working with, I think that that's important. Like for me, I felt like what I was dealing with was interfering with my relationship building, for example, right? And I felt like without telling them what was going on, my behaviors were actually a misrepresentation of who I am because they didn't know why I was doing what I was doing,
Mm.
right? And it could have been interpreted as she's being picky or she's being difficult or whatever the case might be, when in fact, I was actually just saying these things because I was advocating for what made me feel most comfortable. And so I find that informing the people that you're working closely with is actually something that only adds value to the relationship building aspect.
I like that because that's very different than what we've grown up to learn.
I,
So,
you know, I think that there is a power also in just saying this is how my brain is. I'm not neurotypical. And I also think that it's one of my superpowers. I truly feel that it's why I can break down a script the way that I break down a script. I've had so many different friends in the field and also some of the, the other actors that are coming up kind of behind me and are newer that I coach. But even my peers that work at my level or higher say, I just don't know how you glean that from the script, like, and I can do it like this. Like I'm reading a script and I almost immediately know what the character wants or even what her subtext might be and when she's saying this or why she would be saying this because it's almost like this very quick succinct little map that goes off in my head while I'm reading stuff. And I guess as I try to like coach other people, I found that in coaching them that the things that are very obvious to me are just not obvious to everybody. And so I think that that's my neurodivergency helping me, honestly. It's probably also why I was a good investigator, if we're being honest, right? My attention to detail is very, very heightened.
nope, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, no, my friends growing up, it drove them nuts. My parents too. My mom's like, stop picking at me because it was like, if there's a fuzz on the back of your head, Beth, like I will see it. Like if you have like a little piece of fuzz in your hair in the back of your head, I'll see it. Like it's just always been that way for me. The thing that is not in place is the thing that is most highlighted to me, always. And so my friends would be like, "Why are you being so judgy? Why are you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm not. I just sorry,
Yeah.
I was just picking out that like that you got the wrong buttons on your shirt done or something, thinking I'm being helpful, thinking that things out of place, I should say something." And then people again misinterpreting my intention behind saying it. I think now knowing how really more how my brain works, I think that it's only advantageous for me to share, that that's what's going on so that people know where it's coming from.
Yeah. No, I get that. Um, I'm starting to get a little Zoom notification about running out of time.
Uh-oh.
Um,
I know
so
I talk really I have really lengthy really lengthy responses, which we can probably also chalk up to the way that I feel a need to explain things.
yeah, no, it's very much appreciated on my end for sure.
Oh, okay, good.
Um, so the runarounds have been out for about a month now, month and a half ish.
Yeah.
What else are you working on? What can we look forward to?
Well, I did a couple episodes of Apple TV's For All Mankind that I think is coming out in 2026, but we don't really have a release date on that yet. But I appear in the final two episodes of that of season 5. And then I just worked on the show Reasonable Doubt I did an episode of that that is airing November 6th. And I went and spent a couple weeks in New Jersey working on a Netflix comedy with John Cena and Eric Andre that's called Little Brother. I assume that's going to be out sometime next year. And I just have a very small role in that. I don't like to say small role because they say no role is small, but I am not, I'm in it just for a couple scenes. And the final cut, you may not even hear me talking in. I'm kind of involved in some funny situations. I'll just leave it at that. But I use that as a means of being around comedic actors for 2 weeks and getting a free master class in comedy acting because comedy is something that I really want to do. So, I also take different jobs for different reasons. And with that one, um, I didn't take it for the footage that I expect to get or, any of that. It was very much like, absolutely, I want to go be on set with a bunch of comedians or comedic actors and just learn from them. So, that, and then I'm trying to remember. I think that those are the three things that haven't aired yet. Um, I get to go shoot a movie in the Caribbean next month. Um, that'll be really fun. And I'm also up for, right now, I'm in the mix for a really, really exciting type of role that I hope to get that's based on a true story. That's all I can really say about that, though.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I
It'll be a totally new type of character that I'll get to explore and one that will challenge me personally with some different things that I've dealt with in the past. So I'm really, really crossing fingers for that one.
I will be manifesting from afar for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And then lastly, where can we follow you and stay up to date with you and your work?
I am really only present on Instagram. It's at Dani Dani underscore Diet, which is Deette. And really, I always say the best place to see any upcoming work or things that I've done is to check my IMDb profile. I try and get my projects up there as soon as they'll let me. As soon as the production has their page up, I try and get my upcoming stuff up there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure getting to meet you, and chat with you about your characters and navigating the industry. And I hope you get that role.
Thank you. Me too. We're crossing all the fingers. It was really nice to talk to you, Beth.